Here's one representation of spermatozoa being still uterus.
Yeah. I was taught that there's spermatids when they're on the outside, and that there's spermatozoa when they're way buried. But they've got a tail sticking out in the womb, and I was taught that there were spermatids. Let's see real quick here.
This is
Well, from a nurse cell to spermatogonium? No, I just wrote down, she said between spermatogonium and spermatocytes. So how would you differentiate between a spermatogonium and a nurse cell again?
So again, the spermatogonium, the nurse cell, remember, like this is nurse cell cytoplasm without a nucleus here.
Okay, long cytoplasm.
But remember, like, or you can look to see if there's a break up here and then follow the cytoplasm back down. What is this? That's a nurse cell, yeah, because you can see, you can follow it, you can see the darker cytoplasm going in between these cells. The other key that you can look for is if you are looking for stacks like this. So if you've got a definite stack, what's this thing? Spermatogonium, good. What's this? That's a nurse cell.
So this nurse cell isn't directly stacked.
It's not directly stacked, remember, because the nurse cell is sticking its fingers between all of those guys.
Okay.
And it looks like they almost have like a pyramid type shape. As they're like.
They kind of have more of a pyramid type shape. Remember too that it's actually, that nurse cell is causing the differentiation of all of those spermatogonia, right? And because of where it's sticking out its cytoplasm, that's those cytoplasm and the way that those are sealed together in between the nurse cells. The nurse cell's kind of sticking fingers out like this, and the nurse cell next to it is touching like this. And so that cytoplasm is actually what's creating that blood-testis barrier, okay, or helping to create that because of the way that, and it's also helping those cells to differentiate, okay. Let me see. So the interstitial cells, right, would be anything like here that's in between those tubules, by the way.
Do you have to know the luteal layer from the basal layer?
I wouldn't know the luminal layer versus the basal layer, because that would be really hard for me to point out. But your teacher might have different thoughts, so I would feel like, unless I had a really perfect cut, I would feel kind of weird pointing that out on a practical.
What was the L's in term called?
The luminal compartment.
Luminal?
Oh,
Like
luminal, I think
as
it's
in
luteal.
So luminal, so luminal as in towards the lumen versus the basilar or towards the basal layer. Because remember that the nerve cells are polarized.
Is that basically?
Huh?
Is that where the blood testis barrier is?
So the luminal is above or towards the lumen, the basal is below.
And there's an actual distinct layer you can see if you had a good cut?
Like if you had a good cut, yeah, you'd be able to, I mean, basically like...
So is the basal
So if you have
layer,
a nurse cell down here, the basal layer would be like these guys down here. The luminal would be like more up here.
Oh, okay.
Is it the fiber of the spermatogonia that's separated into the primary?
It's the spermatogonia versus the primary, secondary spermatocytes and the spermatids.
So the nurse cell and primary spermatogonia, or the spermatogonia would make up the basal layer.
Yeah.
And everything else would make up the luminal layer.
Pretty much, yeah. You can see they've got actually a nice textbook diagram of it.
embryo.
stimulates the interstitial cells. So loop adenosine stimulates the latent cells, which are the interstitial cells. Testosterone. And their cells stimulate the binding hormone, which synergizes with testosterone and stimulates spermatogenesis. Not for Cold Records.
Doing a whole list of other things as well.
Well, there's the little chicky. Is that
Here,
a
cheeky,
dorsal
cheeky,
view?
cheeky. This is actually an overhead view.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
what I mean.
it's like if you had it mounted, you windowed the egg and you're looking down from the top.
Yeah.
Is that like
That's what I
24
that's what I
hours?
was trying to mean.
This is 20 to 22 hour.
Nice.
So what is this?
That's the head.
Good. It's the head fold. What is down here? Tail. What is this thing down the middle?
That's the neural. That's a nodal cord in the right in the middle.
That's the notochord forming, yeah. At this point it's probably the neural groove.
Well, there's something called
And what are these things that are starting to form?
Somites.
Somites. Let's see if we can see those a little bit better.
So is a neural groove in the neural tube the same thing?
The groove forms before the tube. But yeah, the groove eventually turns into a tube. So here you can see the somites a little bit more clearly. All these little bumps are somites. You have somites for every body section, so that eventually is going to give rise to bone. So that's where your ribs come from. That's how you get a vein, artery, and nerve that are with each of your intercostal regions, because that's where we're most segmented is around our rib cage, but it happens throughout our entire body axis. So that's why your cranial nerves come off of your brain in a very specific order, because those are what comes off up here under that same type of segmentation. But here you can actually see that groove. This is the actual neural groove that's starting to form. It hasn't quite folded all the way into the notochord. What's all this stuff that's standing out here? So it's stained darkly. Where is the amnion in this? Is it deep to this, or is it above this, or what? If this is the animal. Yeah, so the amnion is going to be like out here. Okay? What's back here? Yolk sac. Yeah. This is a chicken, so there is no placenta.
So is the neural fold and neural groove the same thing?
So there's the neural groove forms the neural fold, forms the neural tube.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it goes primitive streak, neural groove, neural fold, neural. No.
The primitive streak is not the same thing. Remember that primitive streak is developed when you're doing, it's earlier.
Well, in the 12-hour one where you see like it looks like there's just like a fold, is that the primitive streak or is that the neural groove?
So that's the neural groove by that time. Because remember, gastrulation occurs around hour 16, I think. Let me look real quick.
Well, if it's hour 16, then it probably.
20 to 22. Oh, wait. Oh, you changed it to a different hour, didn't you?
Well, remember too, this is chicken, not human. So that's
Yeah.
different too.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm saying I've looked at a 12-hour embryo and I see I thought was a primitive streak. Now I'm wondering what it was.
Basically, if you've got a head fold and a tail fold, you're past the primitive streak
Well, you don't
time.
see any of that. All you see is a groove going down the middle of this.
If it's just a big flat thing and all you see is a groove, which in this case, in both of the ones that we looked at, we have a definite head on this embryo.
Yeah.
And so that's past primitive streak time. But if you've got like
All I got, I don't have a head.
A flat disc, and all you got is a streak down the middle.
Yeah,
that's the primitive streak. Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's what you see in the 12-hour.
So, if you want, let me see. I've got a chick.
What's the thing forming in the middle again? What chord?
That's the notochord.
Dio?
There's the notochord. This is actually the neural groove. Because see, the groove is open. That's what you've got labeled on your first 12 weeks of development in figure 29.7, and they show you an EM, and it's showing you the axis of the future spinal cord. That's what that is the neural groove. 1089. So what's all this stuff that's staining then, since we oriented ourselves?
Yolk.
It's yolk. So this is yolk sac. All of this stuff that's all dark is yolk sac out here, and the animal's sitting on top of it. Okay. Let me put up a... So what is this?
The head.
That's the head. What are these bumps? That's the neural tube, but then right now it's the notochord because it's closed by now. This is now primitive brain, basically, because you remember how you have different sections of your brain. So this is part of your brain, part of the brain that's going to form. Here's another part, and then this part's going to form the cerebrum. Okay.
Would you be asking us that kind of question? Okay.
I would ask you that if you were in my 232 class, but not in this class.
Did we change perspective in this slide?
No. And so now we're still looking top down because if I pan around, you can still see the yolk all around it. See? You're still looking top down. Okay? You can see definite tail. Definite tail.
So it looks like it's curving towards us.
Definite head. I happen to know that there's a bend that goes like this, and so that's kind of where you can tell if you look really hard at it that this part is coming out towards us, and so that's why I'm saying top down.
Top down.
Yeah. And that these are somites. See all these beautiful somites, how square they wind up getting? And then down here you can see it. Notice the neural tube is not closed at the bottom yet. The head closes before the tail closes. Which is if you get weirdness in head folding, you can have brain problems, right? Because those brain ventricles don't form the right way because the brain lobes don't form the right way. But then if you don't get tail closure down here, that's how you can get stuff like spina bifida. It's actually pretty common that everybody has one or two vertebrae that don't close entirely because of somite development, but most people it's like benign, so you don't notice it ever because it's not a pathology because you live your life just fine.
So does the notochord disintegrate and turn into the cartilage between your vertebrae, basically, pulpus, right?
That's kind of a complex question. I can show you that later.
But I mean, at this point, is this still notochord? I mean, for everything we're going to look at, there's still going to be a notochord.
There's notochord there. There's neural tube there, both. And then the notochord is going to form some.
Like, would this
some
be
structures.
like? Would the light part be the notochord, and then the dark part next to the somites be the neural tube?
I think that I think what you're seeing with the light part is honestly the gap in the neural tube, because notice it continues all the way up into the brain, into the primitive brain.
So it still hasn't closed, right?
It's closed at the top. It's not closed at the bottom.